Nicki Collen is at Baylor to stay. So now, if you were holding out, you can officially call it the Nicki Collen era on Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Gametime and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. And thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. I am your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. Happy July 31st to you. One of the birthdays of one of the top three Locked On Baylor hosts ever, and a big day for the Collen family and Baylor women's basketball. We will talk about the head ball coach's extension, how long that goes, and what that means for the program. We're also going to look at a bit of it's something that's coming from the ACC expansion talks, which could have something to do with the Big 12, but I think also links back to Baylor historically and whether Big 12 teams should be scheduling non-conference games with Power 5 programs, whether that should be a mandate within the conference. I think that's a good thing to look at. Also, we've got flipping. The Bears are flipping out. We have more flipping in the recruiting game, and it is going to impact Baylor this time, where usually it's the other way around. The big news yesterday was the extension for Baylor women's basketball coach Nicki Collen. And this one, I don't think necessarily comes as a surprise. But I think it's really good news for Baylor women's basketball. The extension goes through 2030. It was announced at high noon on Tuesday, which I thought was so very fitting. But yes, the newly extended contract running through 2030, which, look, Mac Rhodes, he's dishing out those extensions, man. He's not afraid to make it long-term. And he said, "We are thrilled to announce the contract extension for Coach Nicki Collen. She has demonstrated an exceptional commitment to our student athletes and Baylor family in her first 3 years at our women's basketball program. She has assembled a strong and talented staff that is doing an excellent job in the development of our athletes. Her leadership, vision, and dedication to excellence have significantly contributed to the continued success of our storied program." And this comes, of course, after making the Sweet 16 last year, upsetting Virginia Tech on their home floor to advance to that second weekend up in Portland and nearly knocking off the number one seed, having a lead in the fourth quarter against the number one seed USC that would have advanced them to the Elite Eight. That would have advanced them further than LSU. Just want that out there for whatever that's worth to you. I again, not surprised by it, but I really like this. I've mentioned this on this podcast before. I really felt Nicki Ball is just on the ascent. I think her team found that identity last year more towards the end of the season, even though they had a great start to the year and hit a snag and really felt in limbo for a lot of the conference schedule. They finished strong. They showed a lot of toughness, and they are in really good shape coming into this year. Like this is a group that now, after kind of piecing some things together the first 2.5 years under Nicki Collen, this is a group that has played with each other. Okay, and we know Sarah Andrews is a great holdover. Jada Van Geitenbeek has been there for a few years, but now so is Bella Fauntleroy. Now so is Dariana Littlepage Buggs. And there is a lot to be optimistic about in terms of this team's chemistry and the pieces that they've added going into this year, like an Aaronette Vonleh at the post position. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Is the fact that they are ready to win the next year or two anyway. You know, we beyond that, we have confidence, but I think this contract extension shows that. And one thing that, and I said on the radio as well, is it's obviously so tough to follow a legend. And we've talked about that so much with her coming in after Kim Mulkey. And I mean, obviously that standard being there and seeing the 3 championship banners that Kim Mulkey coached the team to, and, you know, coming in with players who some had felt betrayed by Kim Mulkey. Like it's a lot to come into in any situation like that. Like whoever the poor soul was that came in for Pat Summitt. You know, that's a big deal. And you never know how long the leash is going to be. You never know that when you're replacing a legend like that. And what this contract shows is we do believe in what you're going to do for this program. And I think her style of basketball is what women's college basketball is evolving into. Um, high paced, a lot of outside shooting, whether you like it or not. I know there's a good faction of women's basketball fans that are like, I really don't want it to become more like the men's game. And it is. And it is. And I think that quality has and making that strategy as close to the men's game as it has been in a long time really helps the women's game evolve. And I think Nicki Collen is a great ambassador for the university. She does a lot for the university outside of just her coaching duties. She is a great face of the program. And this contract shows all of those things as well. And she is, as tough as it is to come in for Kim Mulkey, she's kept the pace. They've won 20 plus games each of the 3 years she's been here. When you are replacing someone like that, of that magnitude, that's not an easy thing to do. Whoever comes in for Gino Auriemma, if they win 20 straight games 20 plus games for 3 straight seasons after that's an accomplishment. And I know that Nicki Collen is probably not going to get the praise she deserves from Baylor fans until she wins the big one, like goes to a Final Four and or wins a national championship. I think the way she is going, she has a chance to do that in the next couple seasons. I really do. They're not in that highest echelon, of course, the way that obviously South Carolina is right now, that LSU, I think, will continue to be, that that USC will be with Juju still there. But they are going to be a team to be reckoned with, and I think they should be the favorites to win the Big 12. I really do. Iowa State's going to be good. Kansas State's going to be good. Utah was a top 5 team at one point last year until they lost to Baylor. Arizona's got Final Four experience recently. So I'm not saying it's going to be them and everyone else, but I think they have a real shot to win this conference this year. And I, for one, am excited to have Nicki Collen leading this program. I really am. And this extension definitely shows a lot of faith in her as the women's college basketball game evolves and gets even more popular. Coincidentally enough, after Baylor has its great run of success with the 3 national championships in the 15-year span. But I love the direction that this is going for Baylor women's basketball and for Nicki Collen. Today's episode of Locked On Baylor is brought to you by Gametime, which has been like my favorite sponsor of this week specifically, which I don't think I'm allowed to say, but they also got me to the Red Sox game as an early birthday present just a few days ago on Monday night. I was there. It was awesome. I had great seats. I got to wait till the last minute because that's what Gametime is so good at, those last minute tickets. And I got to see the view from my seat, so I knew I wasn't behind a pole like you could be a lot of times at Fenway Park. And so it was my first time there in a few years, and Gametime made that happen. Made me a very, very happy guy. Like I said, best at last minute deals. You can save up to 60% off by buying last minute for, not just sports. You could do it for like concerts, comedy shows, theater, pretty much anything that needs a ticket. All right. And they've got the all-in pricing. So I knew that price that I saw there was going to be the price that I was going to pay. And it's also got the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime is going to credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Today's episode is also brought to you by Factor Meals. I, for one, am trying to eat better this summer, but there's a lot going on. Well, there's a great way to do that, to get both done. You can do all the things you want to do. You can eat better and take the hassle out of it with Factor Meals. They have over 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, so you'll always have new flavors to explore. You can make your whole day delicious, man. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, supper, if you call it that in the Northeast, even your midnight snacks, you've got it all covered with easy, nutritious options. And the best thing is you're keeping the kitchen time to a minimum. All right. They're ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. It is so easy. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. I mean, you can use your preferences. You can, say, I'm trying to manage calories. I'm trying to maximize my protein intake. I'm trying to avoid meat, or I really just want a well-balanced meal. Head to factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 and use the code lockedoncollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. Again, that's code lockedoncollege50 at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
Beautiful news out of the ACC. They want you to make your schedule hard. The conference commissioner, according to the NC State coach, this is a Josh Graham show tweet, a direct quote from Dave Doran, the head coach at NC State, says, "We were asked by the ACC to play as many Power 5 games as we can. We were told not to play mid-major games on the road," which, sure, those, we're scared, but you can be. Just don't avoid the trap. That was him explaining why NC State has ditched an appearance with App State on the road and booked instead conference opponent Virginia as non-conference matchup.
Yeah,
buddy, can we go somewhere here for a second?
Yeah,
can we look at a list of the non-conference teams that most college football playoff teams have played in the four team era? Because there's a whole lot of Week 11 SEC games against Western Carolina.
Sure.
There's a whole lot of Georgia's going to play a real tough one against CalBap this week.
Georgia State.
Yeah. And all the ACC schools, the conference commissioner says, "Yeah, we'll give you more money if you win more football games, but you better be playing the good guys." Hear me out. A loss versus any Power 5 team is automatically worse than a win against any FBS football team. And I don't think that's crazy.
I don't think it's crazy either. But I also don't mind the ACC doing this.
Okay, wow.
I really don't mind them doing this because I think overall...
So you want to kill the livelihood of mid-major programs?
Yes.
That's what you're saying?
I do. Okay. I do. I think it bolsters your conference without really doing anything. Because even in this college football playoff world, we are still very much and always have been in a BCS mindset. Okay. And this is what I thought about with Baylor for years under Art Briles. I thought they are missing opportunities when it comes to playoff ranking and when the playoff rankings come in November, that they are getting screwed because the conference is not good enough. And I think that is proven by them missing the postseason in 2014 specifically. And all they really needed to do was schedule another Power 5 team in that week 2 slot. Instead of SMU or Rice, the old Southwest Conference rivals, you pick any Power 5 team that stinks, Minnesota, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, and it's a win, and it makes your schedule look that much better. So I don't mind the ACC doing that. Look, the North Carolina schools specifically are already trying to get away from the state doesn't want them to, but the schools are trying to get away from playing App State and Coastal down in South Carolina or ECU, even though those are great for the economy. I think that is a good move by the ACC. It really doesn't take a lot. You go play Cal, Cal's in the ACC. I was looking at it from a Big 12 perspective. You go and play Cal in the Big 12 and you win it, and it automatically looks better than beating Texas State, because I've heard some teams in the Big 12 can actually do that. They can beat Texas State. I haven't met them yet, but apparently that's a thing. And so that automatically makes your team better, which in turn makes your conference look better. And we know the ACC loves a good non-conference schedule. It all comes back to Brad Brownell It really does. And they look at their record versus teams from other conferences. That Brownell kept throwing that around, the ACC record against Big 12 teams in basketball. So clearly it is something that conference cares about. And when you are spiraling the way that conference is, how can you not do anything possible to make your image look that much better? How can you not, come bring to your shareholders meeting, hey, look at how good we were against the Big Ten this year? Because, North Carolina State beat Illinois and BC beat whomever, Rutgers. And look at that. That's 2-0 against the Big Ten. I think that works. But yeah, kill the smaller programs, survival of the fittest. Isn't that what college football is all about?
What's better? What's better? Playing a road game and beating App State, which, by the way, NC State might lose.
It's not a given. It is not a given.
The underlying here is going, well, shoot, guys, we might not win that one. So, you know what game we might actually have a good chance in? Old conference foe Virginia. Is it better to beat?
Now that doesn't make any sense, by the way. That should not be allowed. The ACC says no, play a non-conference game out of the conference. We all love to beat up on Virginia football. We've been doing it for 125 years, but you need to go out of the conference.
This is why it's colossally embarrassing to me. Is NC State was like, oh, Power 5 programs? Sure, we'll do that.
Is the ACC Power 5 enough for you? ACC?
It's a Spider-Man meme. It is.
Yeah.
It's just not going to count.
Ooh, getting two birds stoned at once. Let's do this.
I would rather win a road game against 9-3 or 10-2 App State than win a home game against 3-9. Or they won an 11 last year. Did they win a game?
They were pretty bad. They won a game. They
were terrible.
Sure they might have won.
And NC State said, you know what's more winnable than playing App State? Our very own friend from the league that we're in. And that, to me, is so monumentally. If tomorrow, Utah, who's a much better football program than Cincinnati, said, non-conference game against Cincinnati, that is embarrassing and bad and shouldn't happen. It's exactly what's happening here.
Well, yeah, that's where it kind of they've stepped on the rake and it hits them back in the face, right? It's kind of a way to get back at the conference, I guess. But I think a better example would be like if you're NC State, does a win against 10-3 App State look better than a win against 3-9 Cincinnati, 4-8 Cincinnati? It does. And I think that's where
they're just worried they're going to lose.
Problem of the conference versus a problem for the program. And I think that's the risk you take by having one or two of those versus, having a team like Clemson playing Penn State maybe instead of SC Upstate. I think that's much more likely.
Presbyterian. It's always like a fun one. That's always a real fun one in there. The Citadel. Now that I've moved out here,
bounce pass,
moved close to the Low Country. It's cool how many just little niche. Oh, UNC Wilmington's football team. You can just drive up and see them.
Seahawks, good town, Wilmington. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber. You're not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions to apply, and that eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to our USA customers. That is ebaymotors.com. I told you guys I told you to look out for it. I told you to look out for Caleb Burns. And what happens the next day? Caleb Burns flips from Texas Tech, commits to Baylor. Bang, boom. Whatever the guys do with the cookies, boom, boom. Another get for the Baylor Bears on the recruiting trail. Man, I mean, I'm not going to keep saying how hot they are because I sound like a broken record. But what I mentioned in that show yesterday and what I think is so important about this is it's the defensive side of the ball. I had no doubt they were going to get to the defensive side because, I mean, they've done so well recruiting. Like, I had no doubt they were going to get there. But really, it was Camoran Morgan who was the big recruit out of the 4 or 5 big ones that they got in July on the defensive side. Jackson Blackwell in there too from Lorena, and now you add Caleb Burns from Cy Falls. Tremendous. They're not done. We're kind of towards the end of the blue chip guys. Caleb Burns being a high 3-star, but the other positive, not just being on the defensive side, is it's a win over a conference rival and over a recruiting rival in Texas Tech. I mean, we did shows about him. We did segments about Caleb Burns. He was someone that Baylor was hot on the trail of for a long time, and it was really between Baylor and Tech, and lo and behold, it was Tech at the beginning of the month. It was right before Ja'Cory Watson committed to Baylor, and I was like, oh boy, this could be really bad. And everything since that Caleb Burns Tech commitment has been great for Baylor on the recruiting trail. And then you get that one back? That's like losing to someone early in the season, winning the rest of your games, and then beating them in the playoffs. Like, because then you get Caleb Burns back. That's tremendous. This is a guy, again, who was living in the opponent's backfield. It's a pretty high-end 6A football last year in the Cypress, Houston area, where he had 18 and a half tackles for loss, 6 sacks, a couple picks, a couple forced fumbles, a couple PBUs. He's back there in coverage too. It's not a 5-star commitment, but Caleb has been a very productive high school player in some high-end high school football, and a win over Tech is bigger than it was a couple years ago on the recruiting trail. Because I think Tech's got a good thing going. I'm a Joey McGuire fan. I'm not going to say that they should have hired him instead of Dave Aranda here at Baylor, but Joey McGuire, I think, is a good coach. And I think they've got a good next couple of years to look ahead to. And they got like the biggest fish in the pond last year in Micah Hudson, the 5-star receiver from Lake Belton. And it's like, man, is Tech going to be too big a recruiting entity for Baylor to compete with these days? The answer is no. The answer is no. Okay, because they've got a lot of money too, and they've done things the right way when it comes to NIL. They have been on the cutting edge of it. They're still kind of figuring some things out, but they've been pretty good at that NIL stuff. And again, so you tally all that up. Good, charismatic coach who's a terrific recruiter, a good short-term future, commitment to the program in terms of its new facilities, add-ons to the stadiums, and good NIL. Baylor, who had arguably none of those things at the end of last year, just flipped a guy from Tech. They flipped a guy from that program. Program B flipped one from Program A. And I don't think that could be undersold. That's what strikes me even more so than some of these guys they're bringing in. The 4 stars are obviously the best and the brightest in terms of what we're looking at. But you look at these 3 stars, because we said it time and time again, Baylor, when they're humming, they're getting 3 stars. They're identifying that talent early, and they're developing those guys. And when you have a 3-star that you were recruiting really hard, and he ends up flipping from Tech and picking you over, TCU, UH, and SMU, you need to start winning those battles again. They haven't been winning those battles consistently enough the last few years. And the last month, it shows that they have. So welcome to the family, Caleb Burns. We got another flip to talk about on the show tomorrow. But let me know what you think about that Caleb Burns commitment and flip, and how that is different from, having the great 4 stars, which almost seemed fluky. Nothing against them. It just, from coming off of 3 and 9, it almost feels fluky to get those guys. This one, it feels like even in your wheelhouse as well. And he flips from Tech. And by the way, Taz Williams tweeted out yesterday, 2 more, and then he's going to take a rest. So shout out to Taz Williams and what he's been doing on this recruiting trail too. More so than ever, you have guys recruiting other players to come and play for their programs. Let me know what you think about that flip down in the comments below. Let me know what you think about the Nicki Collen contract extension. I'm all here for it, but drop that down in the comments below on YouTube, or tweet at us at Locked On Baylor. If you're listening on podcast, be sure to like and subscribe. Leave any kind of comment you want on the video. That helps a lot. And you can find us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We're the only Baylor podcast that is Baylor exclusive, every day, free, and not coming straight from the university. And we're super proud of that. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you tomorrow on your favorite program, Locked On Baylor.